On July 4th, 2026, 18-year-old Nolan Xavier Wells went out on a boat with a group of friends to celebrate the holiday. 2 days later, his body was found in the water off a remote Mississippi island. What actually happened to him in between is still not fully known. In the time since his death, 2 separate autopsies, a missing phone, a viral video, and a very public fight over transparency have turned a local search and rescue into a story covered by nearly every major outlet in the country.
We just want to know what happened and why our baby didn't come home.
Nolan grew up in Ocean Springs and was a multi-sport athlete at Ocean Springs High School before going on to play wide receiver at Southwest Mississippi Community College. His coach described him as the kind of player who lifted everyone else up around him, and friends remember him as easygoing and well-liked. The night before the trip, he cooked his parents dinner before leaving to stay over at a friend's house. And the next morning, he and a group of friends headed out to Horn Island to celebrate the 4th of July. Horn Island is a barrier island about 8 miles off the Mississippi coast that's completely undeveloped. The only way to get there is by private boat, and once you're out there, there's no cell service. Despite that, it was a very popular spot on the 4th of July, with boaters from across the coast anchoring just offshore to spend the holiday out on the water. Nolan was last seen around 3 in the afternoon near the northwestern tip of the island. According to a statement from the mother of one of the friends on the trip, their boat started taking on water because of a problem, and the group decided to head back around 4:30. Nolan didn't go with them. The explanation that's circulated since is that he chose to stay behind and planned to catch a ride back later with a different group of friends who were also out that day, but he never made it back. That night, one of the friends who had been on the boat called the Coast Guard around 11 p.m. to report Nolan missing. But that initial call, according to the Coast Guard, didn't require an active response. Nolan's mother, Christine Wansley, separately called the Jackson County Sheriff's Office around midnight. But it wasn't until the next afternoon at around 12 that the Coast Guard received a formal request from the Sheriff's Office for search and rescue assistance, which was roughly 13 hours after the first call came in. Once the request went out, a multi-agency search was launched involving the Coast Guard, state and federal park rangers, and volunteers from the United Cajun Navy. On the morning of Monday, July 6th, a National Park Service ranger found a body in the water near the northwestern tip of the island, close to where Nolan had last been seen.
And this evening, we have an update to a missing teens case out of Jackson County on the coast. County Coroner Bruce Lidd Jr. confirms that the body found near Horn Island Monday has been identified as 18-year-old Nolan Wells. According to WCBI's sister station WXXV in Gulfport, the coroner says they used dental records to positively identify the body as Wells. Now, Wells was reported missing on Saturday, July 4th around 3 p.m. on the island.
A state autopsy was performed that same day, and officials said results, including toxicology, could take a couple of weeks. As of this recording, those results still haven't been released. In the days right after Nolan was found, Sheriff John Ledbetter said investigators didn't suspect foul play, and that comment spread fast online. A CNN law enforcement analyst later suggested he probably meant that there were no immediate, obvious signs of foul play on the body, which is closer to what the coroner had actually said, but the shorter version stuck and frustrated a lot of people. It didn't help that in the photo from that day, Nolan appeared to be the only black person in a group of friends who were all white, which made some people feel uncomfortable about the events surrounding his death. On July 7th, the family announced that they retained civil rights attorney Ben Crump, and his office said that they were calling for a thorough, transparent investigation along with the release of records, witness statements, and autopsy findings. Around the same time, the family set up a GoFundMe to help cover funeral costs, which has since raised well over $200,000. In interviews over the following days, Crump said investigators had told the family that they didn't see evidence of foul play, even though people had recorded an altercation on the boats that day. And he also pointed out that Nolan's family described him as a strong swimmer, which made an accidental drowning harder for them to accept.
Authorities have said they believe Wells drowned, but the sheriff stressed their work is still ongoing to determine exactly what happened.
We're awaiting the state's autopsy report from the medical examiner's office.
Wells' family attorneys launching their own investigation. They allege his cell phone was returned with deleted text messages.
At this time, we do not have the cell phone that they speak of, and we've never had the cell phone, but it is to my understanding that we requested the cell phone for an extraction we're working towards the same goal as the family. We want a thorough investigation, and that's what we're going to continue to do until we arrive at the answers that the family deserves.
Alex Perez, ABC News, Chicago.
One of the stranger threads in this case involves Nolan's phone. His mother says she tracked it down herself using the location app Life360 and found it at the home of one of his friends from the boat. When she went through it, she said his Snapchat accounts were essentially empty with no photos or videos from that day at all, which she found very unusual. Crump has argued it's unusual for any teenager to leave without their phone, let alone stay behind on a remote island without it. And it's still not clear who had the phone in the time between Nolan's disappearance and when his mother recovered it. Because the family didn't trust a state autopsy alone to give them confidence in the findings, they had Nolan's body flown to Washington, D.C. for an independent examination by a pathologist with no ties to Mississippi law enforcement. Those results were originally expected on July 10th, but were delayed. And as of this recording, they still haven't been made public, alongside the state autopsy. On July 10th, Christine and Elmore Wansley gave their first television interview since Nolan's death, sitting down with Michael Strahan alongside Crump.
More on the mysterious death of Nolan Wells. We're joined by his parents, Christine and Elmore Wansley, as well as their attorney, Ben Crump. And before we get started, first off, I want to thank you for being here under these circumstances. I know how extremely tough it must be, and we can express how sorry we are for you and your family. And first question, how are you two holding up?
Taking it second by second.
Day by day. Second by second and day by day, which we all can understand.
Christine said all they wanted was honesty and transparency. She explained that Nolan had always checked in with her after these Horn Island trips and had never once failed to do so, and that this time she got a call from one of his friends instead. Nolan's dad talked about having always taught his son that if you go somewhere with a group, you stay with the group, something Nolan apparently didn't do that day for reasons his parents still don't understand. Sheriff Ledbetter told ABC around that same time that nothing in the evidence collected so far pointed to foul play, but that the investigation would continue. That same day, the family, Crump, and Reverend Al Sharpton held a press conference in New York calling for a full and transparent investigation. Sharpton, who had agreed to officiate Nolan's funeral, said something about the situation didn't sit right with him, while being careful to add that that wasn't the same as assuming the worst.
Because to just immediately, before a week time, saying there was nothing done wrong, when we hear that this young man was engaged in some kind of argument that was on tape, that his cell phone and keys ended up with one of the people that were there on the island and got away. He was one black with three young white men who happened to end up with his phone, happened to end up with his keys. Then there's just too many questions that they should not be closing the investigation. Now, I'm from Brooklyn, so I'm a little different than some of y'all. I was built different. My nose is out here, my eyes are here, my brain is here, which means some things I could smell before I could see and before I can figure out. This does not smell right. So some people are saying, Reverend, are y'all bringing in race? Well, we're not bringing in race, but we're not discounting race either.
Crump also went on to lay out what he called glaring contradictions between witness accounts, including conflicting stories about whether Nolan chose to stay or was left behind.
Well, we want to not speculate, but we want to investigate to what happened to Nolan Wells, because it's not adding up. It's just not adding up. When you think about, the contradictions, the things that just make you scratch your head. I mean, you had this 18-year-old kid who went out celebrating on the 4th of July with his friends on a boat. And tragically, they all came back, but Nolan didn't. And Nolan was the only African-American in the group. And so it is like making people harken back to the sins of the past in the state of Mississippi. And so I think that's why people are so concerned with getting to the truth.
That same Friday, Nolan's friend Javon Williams appeared on TMZ Live and pushed back on the idea that this was fundamentally about race. He said he found it strange investigators hadn't reached out at all, despite him knowing Nolan's relationship with the other boys on the trip firsthand. He confirmed there had been a fight on the island that day, but said it didn't involve Nolan and involved a different friend.
If that's, I guess you're saying that it's normal, it's not out of place to be a black teen in that area and that you have white friends, right? That's not uncommon is what you're saying.
I'm sure every black person has white friends somewhere, you know? So I wouldn't say that it's a whole race thing, but it's just like, obviously they're going to paint it as that because none of this adds up.
Have you seen the video that's been going around social media where people think that they're hearing an argument between people and they're wondering whether or not Nolan is one of the people in that argument? You just described that you had another friend, not Nolan, another friend who was in and got into a dispute. Is that video the other argument that you were talking about?
Yes.
So, but is that Nolan in the video?
I can't tell. It's too far away. But in that video, I feel like the voices are too clear. Like from the side, it's too clear for it to be that far away, for it to be Nolan arguing. And then also that altercation, it sounds just like my other friend that got into an altercation on the boat. And they were trying to, like, as he was in that altercation, I was calming him down. They were trying to get him out off the island. They were trying to get him back to land because he was just losing it. So
describe that. That's kind of interesting. What was that about?
He was just very hostile. Like he was just like really like mad. Like they were just trying to, like the parents on that boat were trying to get him out.
That friend has also since came out and confirmed that story. One of the three friends that was pictured on the boat with Nolan that day is the son of Jackson County Chancery Judge Ashley Cole. Before the New York press conference, Cole posted publicly that neither she nor her husband were on the island that day, that her son had fully cooperated with investigators, and that his account of the timeline, leaving around 4:30 because of the bilge pump with Nolan staying behind by choice, matched what had already been reported. A few days later, she posted again saying her family had been receiving death threats since the case went national, including threats against her children, and that while they wouldn't be doing media interviews, they were willing to speak directly to Crump and the Wells family. As of this recording, both autopsies remain unreleased, and Crump's team still hasn't interviewed the three friends who were with Nolan since all three now have their own attorneys. The Mississippi NAACP has publicly demanded a full release of recordings and video evidence, and on July 11th, a peaceful protest was held in Ocean Springs calling for more transparency. Funeral arrangements haven't been finalized. What's left is a case sitting in an uncomfortable middle ground. A family that doesn't trust the official version of events, a viral video that different people interpret in completely different ways, and two autopsies that could reshape the entire conversation the moment they're released. Until those results come back, everything else, the missing phone, the deleted messages, the delayed Coast Guard response, the dueling interviews, is still just pieces of a picture nobody has fully put together. What actually happened to Nolan Wells on Horn Island is still an open question, and it's one his family says they won't stop pushing to answer. And that's the story so far. Hopefully Nolan's family can finally get the answers they're looking for, and this case can be settled as soon as possible. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think about this case, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more videos like this. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and like always, I'll see you next video.